So I'm now going to pass you over to Simon, our Customer Success Manager, who's going to introduce our webinar today. So thank you, Simon. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Huw. And I would also like to add with the global weather check that here in Nottinghamshire, England, it is actually pretty sunny and warm, surprisingly, as we're late into September. But there is a little bit of a chill too. So thank you very much, everyone, for contributing in the questions side. As I can also see here that we do have a large global audience today. So again, I would like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. I'm Simon Waldron, the Customer Success Manager for Gomo Learning. And as Huw's already introduced himself, we'll be covering all of these different elements and top tips and showcasing the 13 best ways to get the most out of e-learning storyboard templates. And just to mention, so storyboarding, if you haven't heard of that before, it was imported, into our business lives from the world of movie making. And it's a powerful way of getting a sense of what you're creating before you create it. Completing a storyboard, it involves documenting screen by screen the sort of rough visuals, the interactions, assets, and other crucial details of that learning journey you want to build, really focusing on what we can do to achieve those learning objectives. And today we're going to help you understand the benefits of this approach and how you can get the most out of storyboarding in general. Huw will also be providing some best practices and examples so you can storyboard your way to e-learning success. So our agenda for today will cover the 6 benefits of an e-learning storyboard, the 7 top tips for getting the most out of an e-learning storyboard, and then how to turn that storyboard into a course using Gomo Learning. So before we get started, we'd like to take a quick poll just to better understand sort of the experience that people have of using storyboards on the webinar today. So we'll just take a few moments while everybody just contributes to this question. So we're just asking, have you previously used storyboard templates to plan and build your e-learning courses? So if you would just like to select one, that'd be really helpful. I can see all the results are starting to come through. Okay, so we have an interesting split at the moment. So we're looking around 40% saying sometimes. Fantastic. So we can see here there's quite a wide range in terms of experience of using storyboards. So hopefully today what we'll be able to do is show you some of those benefits of how you can become more efficient with your e-learning design through good planning. So as we start with the 6 benefits of an e-learning storyboard, it can always be tempting to jump sort of straight in to creating a course because that's where it can be most exciting. But time spent invested in planning your overall structure and the focus of individual screens will set you up to deliver efficient and effective learning messages. By storyboarding your e-learning, you'll see at least these next 6 key benefits. So starting with the first benefit, storyboarding aids team collaboration. Creating e-learning courses is always collaborative work. We have different stakeholders involved, from project managers, clients, graphic designers, and subject matter experts. They're just a few of the many faces who might input into a course before it's finally deployed. The sooner you get their input, the better. If the client, whether that be internal or external, is going to sign off on a certain screen or not going to sign off on a certain screen, it's far better to know that during the storyboarding phase rather than getting too far with the build and finding that it's too late. A storyboard, it gets everyone on the same page from the very beginning. It allows your learning designer to bring that collective vision for the project to life and describe the intent to all of those stakeholders as mentioned, the graphic designers, the wider production team, but it leaves less room for misinterpretation. So we're all focused in the direction that we need to go. And it becomes that blueprint going forwards. No one in the team will have to route around those emails or other planning documents, sketches, or anywhere else. It's all there within the storyboard. So everybody's clear on the direction in which you're going, and what everybody's responsible for within the process to be completed. So what we'll be doing for each one of these steps is going over a bit of the background of them and then just reinforcing those key messages. So the key messages here for Storyboarding aids team collaboration is to ensure we're creating an e-learning course which is collaborative and we're involving everyone. And the earlier we receive that input, typically, the better the result. It also ensures alignment on course objectives, making sure we remain focused. Clear understanding on the creative and content requirements. And this builds on a little later on in making sure we're efficient so we understand our production costs. Our second message here around storyboarding helps you visualize your learning design. Working on an e-learning storyboard, it isn't just about getting ideas approved by everyone. It's also a great space for everyone involved to explore the possibilities available. I recommend that you use this opportunity to review how your themes, your user interface, your animation, and the interactions, how all those ideas fit into your wider flow, and check whether they're paced appropriately through your learning journey. And most importantly, ensure that they tie in with your learning objectives. So the key messages here: explore the ideas, review interactions and visual design, check the pacing of your course matches the learning objectives. And you'll hear us reinforce this a few times as Huw will then show you how to implement this in a storyboard. Number 3, storyboarding puts the learning experience first. Storyboarding marries a visual exploration of your project scope with an exploration of how learning will be transferred. A storyboard goes into just enough detail to help everyone visualize the course, but without getting too hung up on the process of things like asset creation, because there's a danger of becoming too granular at this stage, and that can potentially be expensive and time consuming. So make sure we're focusing again on those learning objectives and everything is put there on that storyboard to achieve them. And this means the designers can focus on planning the kinds of interactions and structural decisions that will transfer that knowledge again and change behaviors. This can be done on the storyboard through things like wireframes, basic imagery, screen layouts, or text descriptors. There's many ways we can sort of visualize this through the storyboard, but it's important that everybody understands that design language. Because otherwise, without storyboarding, we all end up with the risk of sort of just making it up as we go along. So think about the progression between the steps and the effect you want to have rather than the next steps alone. Particularly consider the flow between screens, between topics, and how they are paced. The key messages here: exploration of the scope, to visualize the course journey, and where required, wireframes allowed the designers to focus on planning the interactions, the structure that deliver those learning objectives, and use different methods, whether that be through wireframes, drawings, text descriptors, and so on. Number 4, storyboarding lets you identify weaknesses in your design. With a high-level visual overview of your course, you'll find it far easier to spot mistakes and oversights that maybe were there earlier in the process as you plan, discuss, and share with your stakeholders. Storyboards deal with the broadest and often the most important elements of instructional design. Mistakes in these parts of your design can be very damaging to the learning objectives and journey if not identified early. But storyboarding also allows you to view these basic building blocks from different perspectives to find more subtle weaknesses, with your audiences or predefined personas in mind, consider the different ways your different user groups will approach that learning journey. The key messages here are to have a high-level overview, spot mistakes easily, focus on the basic building blocks, and importantly, test against an audience's persona. Number 5, storyboarding makes it easier to budget effectively. Your storyboard helps you to control project costs in a couple of ways. As we was picking up earlier, we're leading to efficiency and ensuring we're focusing on those learning objectives. Because firstly, it allows changes in direction to be made with little to no cost because we're still at the planning stage. You lose nothing by scrapping an asset at the storyboard stage, as we've not yet invested the time in its creation. Secondly, it's a useful tool to help you map out how much each element is going to cost and prevents you from going over budget. Everyone is kept informed about what is possible with the budget available and whether additional resources are required to deliver perhaps a project which was beyond the initial scope, or it might be more visually or interactivity based. But at this point, this is where we can budget for it and ensure that we can meet those deliverables. So the key messages here are to change direction with little to no cost. It also enables the assessment of the production costs. We have clear visibility of the production requirements, and we're able to adjust the content scope based on those budget restrictions at this stage before we invest in the creation of the content. Number 6, storyboarding, it saves time. Mistakes cost a lot more time in production than they do in planning. Storyboarding allows you to identify dead-end developments a long time before you have to invest the time in fleshing them out. In the worst case scenario, the fix may be considered too time consuming if we weren't to storyboard, and therefore it might actually be implemented. And then you could actually launch a course with an error. And this usually ends up wasting far more time in the long run, as we have to retrospectively fix after identifying. So the key messages here: mistakes cost more time in production than they do in planning. And also from storyboarding, we can identify those dead ends far, far earlier. Now, what we're going to be doing, Huw is going to take you through the 7 tips for getting the most out of an e-learning storyboard and how to turn that storyboard into an e-learning course using Gomo. So thank you very much, Huw, and over to you.
Thank you, Simon. So yes, so what we're going to be doing is just looking at 7 tips for getting the most out of your storyboards, and then we're going to move on to have a look at some example storyboards and actually implement that within an authoring tool. So here with storyboarding, that it really improves e-learning output, but a storyboard has to be built in a certain way to be able to maximize those benefits. And if you neglect certain details, then you risk making mistakes. And if you leave certain people out of the process, you'll miss key insights that may be costly to integrate later in the process. So here are 7 tips that will help you get the most out of your storyboard. So let's have a look at the first one. The first is to assemble your materials and grab a storyboard template. So storyboarding is a process you should repeat every time you develop a course. And that means having a template that's going to save you time. So a good template will help jog your memory about the details you need to include. And as you develop more courses using your template, you'll get a feel for whether you need more or less detail than the template allows. So don't be afraid to adapt an existing template for your purposes. And we're going to be supplying you with a sample template that's going to be available as part of our ebook to accompany this webinar, and we'll be sending you the link to that after the webinar. So storyboarding is a repeatable process, so use a template and review and adapt it to meet your needs. Second, so define your overall structure before storyboarding. So the focus of your storyboard will be the screen-by-screen breakdown of content, interactions, feedback, and visuals, but it's important not to lose sight of how each chapter and screen relates to the others. So we recommend developing a top-level view of your project structure before you dive into the detail of your individual screens. So this should list the navigation elements, the chapters, what kind of introduction and conclusion that you need, and how they connect to each other. So create a tree structure to show you how the course flows. Third point, so keep things focused on the learning objectives. So your storyboard should state the topic of each screen, and you should include details of your intended audience and the key objectives in your project structure, but use plain language throughout. And in general, you should explain ideas in terms of what they do for the learner. Our fourth point is to keep track of assets required. So here by an asset inventory here, we mean all of your images and videos. So taking stock of both the assets that you have and also the assets you'll need to create in order to complete your project. And this will assist with budgeting and planning production. So consider the tools, the images, the videos, the repurposable content that you have at your disposal to get the job done. Then record them against both the screens they're needed on and as a running catalogue of everything you need. And just as a tip here in terms of best practice, that naming conventions for all your assets can be really important when you're working as a team, so it's obvious where everything should fit together. Our fifth point here is include visuals. So film storyboards are sort of visual tools for primarily visual media. But by contrast, e-learning storyboards may need to include a little more text to explain certain ideas. But that said, don't try to achieve everything with a written description alone. And to borrow another important idea from filmmaking, then show, don't tell. But some animations and interactions will be easier to convey with diagrams or mock-ups. And you should at least include a selection of images as a mood board for the kind of visuals you'd like to see on each screen. And focus on one learning objective per screen. So as much a point about creating courses in general as creating a storyboard specifically, it's best practice to focus on a single objective per screen. So a storyboard can help you with this focus. So if you're running out of space in any screen template, you may want to consider splitting it into two. But as we've said in previous webinars, don't just throw all the text from a PowerPoint slide into a single screen in an e-learning course. And another useful way to work might be to make the learning objective the first thing you write on each screen template. So focus on the learning objectives per screen. And finally, get as much input as you can. So share the storyboard with everyone who's going to be inputting into the final design, including clients, but also your all-important subject matter experts, so that you can ensure that they understand and agree the plans you've set out and know what's expected of them as well. So continue your collaborative working as you build your courses too. This is going to be easier if your authoring tool is cloud-based and built around multiple contributors. So features such as version control and permissions will help to ensure that collaboration doesn't just become a free-for-all, really. So those are just 7 tips, but let's now dive in and have a look at storyboards themselves, an example storyboard, and then we're going to look at turning that into an actual course and how this can really help us to just go from a conceptual side into an actual course itself, all guided by the storyboard. So first of all, just click the right buttons here, apologies. Here we go. So let's have a look at a storyboard template. So this is the one that we're going to be providing to you as part of the ebook. So You can see that it starts off by just capturing, obviously, the title, references, and this is where we can begin to put together that initial asset inventory list here. It then prompts us to think about the project structure, about the elements that we want in our toolbars, things like help and glossary, how we're going to introduce the course, and then in particular looking at how we're going to break this down into chapters. So going back to that top level view about the structure of the course. And also how we're going to leave the course. So are we going to leave it via an assessment? What final messages we want to give to the learners as they finish the course there. Then we also have just the template here for the individual screen. So we've looked at the structure there, and now this is looking at the individual screens. And this can just be duplicated for each screen in the course. So here you can see that we have the learning objective here at the bottom. We can list the media assets so that we know exactly what media assets we're going to incorporate into this screen. And then notes about the actual content, and even to put the wireframe in here, or relevant mood board images to guide us in terms of how this screen should look. So that's the blank template. Let's have a look at an example of that actually completed. So here we go. We have here a storyboard for a course about whistleblowing. And we can see that we anticipate that this will be about 30 minutes long from the learner's perspective. We have a top level view about the kind of assets, the media assets that we're going to include there. And now here we're going to have a look at the project structure. So here we're being told that we're going to need things like a table of contents and help and glossary, accessibility switch, resources, progress indicator. We're going to have an introduction, and that's going to have a positioning statement and a video from the CEO. And then the chapters here. So we can see in addition to the introduction and a menu, that we're going to have 5 of these other topics here, including one here, which is going to be an assessment. And that's going to then be the final thing where we're going to recap the course as well here through the assessment. So it's already telling me here what kind of structure I'm going to need to build. And then here's an example of a screen. So we've got the title of our screen. We know that it's going to be a video type screen. It's telling us that we're going to need the media assets here. We're going to need the video of our CEO. We're going to also, it's recommending here that we have a stock background image. And if I have a look at the visual example, we have a simple wireframe. So I know roughly the kind of layout that I need to achieve. And also a useful link to an image to use as the background. And here that it's also telling me about the content notes here. So this is going to be about the whistleblowing course. We're going to have the CEO video introducing it, and we can have some text about the overview and so forth. And it's also telling me that in addition to the video, that I'm going to need a button which is going to link me to the main menu. So it's giving me all of the details here that I need to begin to create the course. So let's turn this into an actual course itself. So what I'm going to do here is to just jump into Gomo itself. So here I happen to be using Gomo, but these principles really apply to most authoring tools as well. Now, the first thing is about the organization of our media. So the storyboard template at the screen level is already telling me what media resources I need. And we also have this high level view here about the asset inventory. So what I can do here is, in advance of actually creating the course, that I can just upload the resources ready to use within the course. Now, this can be particularly important if you're collaborating as a team, because you might have somebody within your team who's the media experts. They've got the graphics and video skills, and they can be preparing based on the storyboard. So they can look at the storyboard and see what assets are going to be needed, and they can be uploading that ready in advance. So in a tool like Gomo, they can simply choose to upload those. And these are now in my whistleblowing media assets folder. So I know this is where I can go to begin to pick those up as I implement the storyboard. So let's go in here, and we can now start to actually build the course. So I'm going to click on Create a New Course. So here in Gomo, it's going to ask me a series of questions, and the answers to those questions I can get immediately from this storyboard. So the first thing is that we know the title here. So I can just pop that in here. I can give it a bit of description from the storyboard as well. Here it's pointing me to the resource folder. Now I've already got my media resources uploading, so I can just point it there. I can now just click Next. Now it's just prompting me here about the look and feel. So in a tool like Gomo, we have these style templates, which in Gomo we call themes. So rather than me having to worry about what branding I'm going to need and what brand guidelines do I need to look up, here I'm just going to use our company Learning Technologies Group theme, and that will completely brand this for me. So I don't need to worry about that. I can just focus on the structure here. So now I can just click Next. Now this is all about the structure. So coming back to my storyboard here, it's already telling me that in terms of the chapter organization, then I should be adding in an introduction and a menu. And then here I'm going to need 5 additional topics in there. So here I can go back into this step in my Gomo course. So it's prompting me for, do I want an introduction? Well, the storyboard tells me yes. I want a menu as well. And also the storyboard is telling me that I'm going to need 5 additional topics. And then we have a look at the supporting content. So the things that are going to appear in the toolbar. So again, the storyboard is guiding me here. So I'm going to need table of contents, help, glossary, exit button, resources, accessibility toggle, and progression indicator. So all of these I can just switch on at this stage. So it's telling me that I need an accessibility option and an exit button, progress bar, table of contents. So this is great. So this is really mapping from the storyboard into the authoring tool. So if I just click Create here, it's now just looking at those initial decisions that I've made. So all of that information that I've input from the storyboard, and it's going to create this outline structure for me. And again, one important thing here with a responsive tool like Gomo is what we haven't had to include in the storyboarding in terms of guidance is we haven't had to say, well, we need to start off with a 1600 pixel canvas, or we haven't had to list all of the devices like an iPhone and a tablet and so forth that we want to support. In a responsive tool, that worry is taken away from you, and you can just focus on the structure and the actual screen content, and then the tool's going to take care of making sure that's going to run across any device. So here you can see that we have our introduction leading to the menu, and now we have our 5 topics. And now again, we can start to use the storyboard to fill this in. So here it's saying that our first learning topic here is just going to be why you should raise a concern. So to make this simple, I'm just going to take the first topic, go to its settings, and put that in there. So I can immediately see in my structure that I've got a topic there. And now what I can also do is then just match the labels on my menu buttons as well. So I can go into my menu topic here. And this is just going to load in the editor there. So again, so here I can just work through these. So for each of these buttons, now Gomo here has already added in menu buttons for me. It's linked them to those learning topics. So all I have to do is just work through here, simply copying and pasting and so on. So there's my second topic, etc. So back into my menu buttons and so on. So for sake of time, I won't go through all of them, but you can see the way that that then works, and we can just save that. Also, in terms of collaboration and workflow, that if we have a team of people working from the storyboard in a tool like Gomo with its different roles and collaboration features, here you could see that I'm currently working on the menu topic, but Simon could be working on why you should raise a concern topic and so forth. So you can have multiple people, but all of us in the team guided by the storyboard here. So the next thing is to have a look at, let's just close down our menu topic. What we're going to do is to have a look at the screen level. So just that example that we've got in here. So this is designed as our introduction screen, and it's already guiding me in terms of the layout. So let's go back here. Let's go into our introduction topic. And again, in a tool like Gomo, it's already added in some sample content, but I can now go in and start changing that and editing it, all the time being guided by the storyboard. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to say I'm going to just work in a single column here. And now I can choose to say put in the logo. Again, here I can just browse for all of those media assets that I've had uploaded in advance. So I can just go to my whistleblowing one, and I can see that I've got a logo in there. I'll just center that. And now I can just go and get the text here that I need from my storyboard. So it's becoming a simple sort of just fill in the blanks here. So here's my heading. And again, the storyboard's told me that this should be the heading 1 style. So I immediately know here that the style I'm going to choose is heading 1, and here in Gomo, how that will appear will depend on how that's defined within my Gomo theme. So I can just put that in there and center that there. And we're now going to just have some text. So here we'll just put in the text. And so I'm just going to edit this text. So CEO. So we just edit that. And of course, with your storyboarding, it can go right down to the actual script level. So it becomes a simple copy and paste because you'll be getting sign off on the script. So here we go. We can just pop that in. And now looking at the storyboard, it's saying here that I should actually have a video in there and the video of the CEO. So again, I can just go back in here, find my video player, and just drop that in there. Again, in a tool like Gomo, it's added in some sample content here. So I can just choose to remove the initial thumbnail there. And now I can just simply go in and browse for the video. And again, through this planning, that I've already got the video that I need in my resource folder here. So I can just add that in there. Let's go back to the storyboard. And it's also saying that I need a button here, which is linked to the main menu. So I can also go in there. And here it's already added in a button. And it's already linked that in to me, for me as part of the creation process of the course in Gomo. So it's already linking to a menu. And I could then be adding conditions onto that to say, well, don't show the start button until the video finishes. So here I could add in a condition because this is what the storyboard's telling me. So add a display condition so the button shows once the video has been viewed. So here we go. So in Gomo, the way that we do that is to say, wait for the screen to be complete. And we wait for the introduction screen for that to be complete. So this is the way that you build it up. You can see that the storyboarding is making it so much easier, both in terms of creating the initial structure for me. So I can just go in and just fill in the blanks in terms of the structure. And then also the screen level storyboards are going to just take me through that. So you go through that process, and then what we can do, and in fact, if you all have your iPhones or tablets to hand, we can also look at the way that we can share this with a wider group, that you can actually go and have a look at this yourselves. So here, I'm just going to go back to one that I created earlier here. So here you can see where I filled in all of the topic titles. We have our introduction and so forth. We have all our elements correctly positioned in the toolbars here. And so if you've got your cameras ready on your smartphones, your QR code readers, because what I can do now is to choose to share this with my subject matter experts to a wider group here. So here, if I choose to share this, there's a link here that I can choose to just send out to people. But you'll also find now, if you have your cameras ready, that you can just point to the QR code there, and that's going to actually load it live onto your phone. So just going to give everyone just a minute or so just to fire up your QR code reader. If you've got an iPhone, you can just point the camera at it and it automatically recognizes the QR code there. So again, this is just a way that we can go through this collaboration process to get the maximum feedback and input as part of our development process driven by the storyboards. And what we'll actually see with that link, if I just go into the example here, so this is the end result here. So I've got my logo, I've got my text, and I've got my video in there of Jonathan, our Chief Executive, explaining what this course is about. And then here I've taken off the locking, so I can just go straight into my menu, again, reflecting that structure from the storyboard there. So here you can see I've also got my menu buttons all labeled, all driven by that storyboard template. So I hope that that's given you a flavor of how you can just, first of all, take an empty storyboard template and populate it here to create the actual usable storyboard, and then how easy it is, having gone through that design process with the storyboard, then to convert that into an actual course using a tool like Gomo. So let's just go back here, because what we'd like to do now is just run another poll. We're just coming to the close here, so I'd just like to get your feedback here. That we have two polls here, which we're just going to pop on the screen. And the first here is just to, having been taken through, we hope, the benefits of storyboarding, and to have a look at an example about how you take a storyboard and turn it into a real life course. So, so we'd like to ask, so having seen it in action, are you more likely to use the storyboard template to plan and build your courses? So we'll just give a few moments to for people to comment there. That's great. I can see that you're busy voting in the poll panel there. And unfortunately, it looks as if overwhelmingly there, almost 80% of you saying that you're more likely to use storyboards in templates to plan and build your courses, which is fantastic. And we'd also just like to, as a final step, that you've seen an example there about being able to turn the storyboard into an actual course, and we hope that you now know the benefits and best practices of e-learning storyboarding. And we'd like you to put this knowledge into practice. So we'll be sending out a link for the ebook, which is going to just capture what we've been discussing today, but also give you a link to be able to download the storyboard templates. And but also we'd just like to know that if you're completely new to Gomo, we're just going to pop a poll up again to see. I can see that we've got quite a lot of existing customers, but if you would like to try out Gomo so you can actually take these storyboards and actually try them for yourself, in this case using the Gomo tool, that we'd just like to ask whether you'd like to find out more how to build courses using Gomo here. So you'll see that we have the poll there about whether you'd just like to submit a question, whether you'd like to attend our weekly demos. We run them every Wednesday afternoon UK time. If you'd like to have a more in-depth look, we can give you a personalized demo if you prefer as well. And we can also set you up with a trial of Gomo. So that's great, and I can see that quite a lot of you are interested in attending our weekly demo, and we'll certainly be sending out a link so you can register for that and learn more about our Gomo product. So we'd like to thank you all very much for tuning in again to this webinar on the benefits of storyboarding. We really appreciate you taking the time. And please let us know how we can help you further. And we wish you all the best in your journey of using storyboarding to enhance your e-learning creation. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Huw.